Hey, welcome to Pauline's Pop Culture Corner. This is my new pop culture channel where I talk about all of the things that bring me back to my childhood and actually things that happened before I was born, things going on now, things that just make me happy and that I want to talk about. And I hope you enjoy yourselves here. If you do, please like the video, subscribe, share it with your friends, comment down below. I'd love to have some conversations with you guys in the comments about different things that you enjoy, or if I missed something in a video, you can let me know what I missed so I can go check it out. This very first video is going to be about slang, something that we all know about, we all use it, and it changes from decade to decade. Some things stand the test of time, some things change from year to year, and it's interesting to see what actually stands the test of time. So join me on this journey on our look through the slang from the 1980s to today. I'm dating myself. That's kind of my time frame. So, I was a kid in the 80s and a teen and kid in the 90s, a young adult in the 2000s. I suppose you would call me middle-aged now, which I am. I own it. It's okay. From my memory and from my experience, there were two main types of slang when I was a kid in the 80s. There were the surfers and there was the Valley Girls. And that's just the area that I was in. I'm sure that in different parts of the country, different areas of the world, there were obviously many different groups. But those are the two that were around when I was growing up in Southern California, in San Diego to be particular. Let's see. Let's start with the surfer lingo. First and foremost is the word dude. Ubiquitous. We still use it today. It's definitely stood the test of time. It's a great word to describe just about anyone or anything that you are talking about or talking to. I'm a dude, you're a dude, he, she, they are dudes. It's a dude. You stub your foot on the coffee table and dude, like really? It's definitely an all-encompassing word. Something that I use on a daily. We still use the word, and no matter how many people have ever said, I'm not a dude, they are, in fact, dudes. It's just how it is. The next word that you really heard a lot from the surfer community at the time was gnarly, which is kind of like crazy, unexpected. Different things can be gnarly as well. Waves can be gnarly, a test can be gnarly, clothes can be gnarly. Someone could say something along the lines of, I was surfing some gnarly waves at La Jolla Shores and I got my butt kicked. It's not usually like a totally positive thing, but it could be kind of like a word to describe something that was like so crazy that you still can't believe it. The next one that we have is the word radical. Really isn't used as much anymore. Was very popular back then. Radical, rad, anything can be radical if it was great. It's kind of similar to gnarly like that, but on the positive side. Radical waves, radical food, just exclaiming radical. Any Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle fans out there will know the term radical. I still find myself saying the word rad. I don't really say radical, but I do find myself saying the term rad a lot. Oh yeah, those shoes were pretty rad, or that movie was pretty rad. It's kind of stood the test of time, but faded a little bit. Another term that's not really stood the test of time, people don't really use it, is bogus. So something that's not good, something that we don't like. It's lame, bogus. You don't hear people saying it that much anymore, though. Definitely like that kind of was like the surfer speak into the valley speak a lot. At the time, if you were really happy about something, you were stoked. I am still frequently stoked. I use that term all the time. It just kind of like it's more of a laid back, I'm happy, I'm excited, or that was great. Just, yeah, I'm stoked. I was stoked when that happened. There is some overlap between Valley Girl and Surfer Speak. I mean, the areas where they came together, kind of overlapped. So some of the words that did kind of share between the two groups were the term bitchin', radical, like, bogus a little bit. But they took over in Valley speak. There's definitely also an inflection or an accent with Valley speak that's very noticeable and very understandable. I've heard it described as trying to talk through a mouthful of marbles. And I thought that was pretty accurate. But we do get some terms from Valley Speak specifically that we still use today, and we're have kind of like bled into everybody's language. That's kind of like awesome, whatever, grody, and totally. And words and phrases we don't really use as much anymore, like psych, to the max, bodacious, and the phrase that everyone knows from Valley Girls, gag me with a spoon. The word like was also just liberally used for everything and any. It became a filler word. Let's be honest. It, in place of or you might say like. Driving English teachers, parents, anybody who had a discerning ear for language up the wall. And I remember being told in speech classes, drama classes, theater, you cannot use the word like unless it is in the script. You cannot use the word like unless it's written down in the speech. Do not say like. And I actually had a teacher who would penalize you a point for every time you said like when you weren't supposed to. Some people ended up failing whatever speech that they were giving or presentation they were giving at that time because they used the word like so much. Part of Valley Girls speak also is the inflection that is called Upspeak. So this is where your voice goes up at the end of every sentence like it's a question. And that's something I never really did. I don't like. I think is annoying because it does. It sounds like everything that's being said is a question, as if, the person that you're talking to has no clue what's going on. But that was part of it. We have to remember that a lot of this was an affectation. It was a put on, like that people just almost like pretended that this was the way that they spoke until it actually unironically became how they spoke. Moving on to the 90s. So this was definitely a time of slang, probably the time that sticks out the most in my mind, since that's when I was a teenager and going through high school and everything like that. So I was a teen in junior high and high school, and then towards the end of the 90s, my early years in college. There's a lot that happens in 10 years when you're around that age. There was definitely a real influence from certain movies with slang. One of the most influential, from what I can remember, influential in my life or with my friends was Wayne's World, which started off as a Saturday Night Live skit, SNL, with Mike Myers and Dana Carvey, and they were, obviously older adults playing at being, 16, 17-year-old guys doing a show in their basement. And so it's just peppered with slang phrases, words, things, things like that. Some of the most famous ones were schwing, excuse me, baking powder, which is, excuse me, beg your pardon, party on, which also was shared earlier in the late 80s with Bill and Ted, for those of you who love that movie like I do. Excellent, which also was shared with Bill and Ted. Spew, meaning to throw up. Are you mental? So basically somebody says something that you're like incredulous about. Are you mental? And a sphincter says what? So that when the person says what, because they have no idea what you said, they are the sphincter. I'm sure all the junior high teachers loved that movie. Another influential movie was the movie Clueless with Alicia Silverstone and Brittany Murphy, among others. Paul Rudd, who has not seemed to age a day in the last 20 or so years. But this movie brought us gems like As If and Whatever. Can you see it? Baldwin, meaning a hot guy like the Baldwin brothers, Alec and Billy, not as much Steven. Buggin', meaning like tripping out, making a big deal out of something, even if it's not a big deal. And the phrase outie or I'm outie. This I'm outie apparently was referring to a car, the car, AUDI, like driving off into the distance, like you're crazy, I'm outie, or just I'm leaving, I'm outie. I always thought it was outie like OUTTIE, like I'm out, but apparently I was wrong. And then Monet, which was also used in the movie and means it looks good from far away, fine from far away, but it's a mess up close. So that was that was not a very nice one. The 90s also brought us "What's Up" from, I think it was a Budweiser commercial that took the country by storm, and is not a thing anymore. Dibs, staking a claim. This is kind of like, it kind of almost seems like it was a morph over from calling shotgun in a car. The term booyah, you're happy with an outcome, or kind of like, I got it, I did it, booyah. Talk to the hand. That seemed to come from like the talk show culture of the time. Talk to the hand, you saw that on like Ricky Lake a lot. For those of you in the 90s who used to watch Ricky Lake after school doing your homework like I did. It means that you're ignoring someone. They're not worth your time. And then if you really wanted to go with the full phrase, it was talk to the hand because the face ain't listening. Yeah, that was a little bit too lengthy. The word fly, meaning a hot guy or a hot girl or hot person, we don't really use that as much anymore either. You go girl, encouragement. Sometimes you still hear that every once in a while. I mean, it's not as much as it was before, but you do still hear that every once in a while. All that and a bag of chips, meaning the full package. Oh, that guy is all that and a bag of chips. I have no idea how that started. That was very weird. At least to me, that was a very odd phrase. This is what I got in trouble with a lot when I was younger, was the phrase no duh. It's definitely part of the 90s attitude. I remember saying it in the 80s, but it definitely fit the 90s attitude. It was basically said when somebody said something really, really dumb or obvious. Like, no duh. Yeah, a couple of times I said that to my mom. Didn't go over well. Kids, don't say that to your parents, okay? Then we had the new millennium of the 2000s, which brought its own lingo and really was influenced still by media, but different types of media, really. Reality TV, more edgy comedy shows, people like Paris Hilton, Lil Jon, Dave Chappelle. They brought us, a bunch of different phrases. Like Hilton's catchphrase was "that's hot." But not usually, it didn't really ever sound sincere. Like, "that's hot," like, "that's awesome." It was more like, "that's hot," like, I don't know. I just never took it as sincere. You didn't really hear many people saying it, but it was just kind of all over the media. You had the term Cronk from Little John, which was all about having a good time, getting crunk. That also, it seemed like it was kind of like pushed by the media. Dave Chappelle brought us, I think, probably the most early 2000s slang phrases ever. You've got things like "I'm Rick James, bitch," or "game blouses" when he was Prince. He also did a great impression of Lil Jon and his catchphrase of "okay." So there was a lot going on behind, like TV influencing slang at the time. A term that came from, like, it seems like it came from the online gaming community was owned. You owned someone, meaning that you got the better of them, you were better than them, you beat them. Also, at the time, I guess somebody, and this is the age of the internet, little things become memes and then they grow and they flower, which still happens now. But at the time with the term owned, I guess somebody accidentally hit the P instead of the O one time, and so it was pwned, PWNED. So that became a thing for a while. You got served. That's kind of like being owned. But I usually heard that came from a movie. That came from a dance movie, I believe. And that was like they did better than you. It was like a dance off and we won, kind of thing. Bounce, the term bounce, we're gonna leave, we're taking off. It's kind of like I'm outie, we're gonna bounce. What's cracking, a greeting, kind of like what's up. What's cracking. I don't know. I hear that every once in a while now. Chillax, which is a totally and completely unnecessary combination of the term chill and relax. If you're going to chill, you're likely relaxing and vice versa. 2000 slang could be pretty obnoxious. I do have to say that. Things got played out pretty quickly. I don't know if it was because of the internet and things kind of got around a lot faster. But things became, terms became annoying. One term that I can think of is the term bling bling. So with bling bling, and then it was shortened to bling. And then after that, it was played out. Nobody said it anymore. And that was pretty quick. The 2010s really seemed like a lot of the slang, rather than coming from movies or TV like we had talked about, a lot of it seems to be coming directly from the internet, from places like Twitter and Instagram, lesser extent Facebook, Reddit, anywhere that you can have memes, have conversations where people say something and it's kind of crazy and other people just run with it. So it makes it kind of hard to keep up with it if you don't know what's going on, if you don't know where it came from. One short-lived, I guess, app or social media was Vine. And so a lot of slang came from Vines, and Vines were like these little 7-second videos that could, there could be comedy, they could be just normal documenting of, any kind of situation, but a lot of stuff came out of Vines too that, we still say, we quote in our house, and it's not necessarily slang, but it's stuff that came from outside, Another term that came out around that time was GOAT, greatest of all time, and started out as a reference to athletes like Michael Jordan, LeBron James, Tom Brady. As much as that pains me, nothing against Tom, but he beat my team way too many times. But now it just references really talented people. You could say that about anyone. You could say that about Robert Downey Jr. You could say that about, really anyone who is at the top of their game. People used to say that about Stan Lee before he passed, that he was the GOAT. So it's definitely stood its test of time as far as like the last few years and evolved. Most recently I have heard it more in reference to athletes again, especially Simone Biles, because of the Olympics that just happened. And I believe, correct me if I'm wrong in the comments, but I believe that she's the most decorated gymnastics Olympian in America. I'm not sure, but like I said, I think that's what I heard. I think that's what I heard from, watching the Olympics. Another term that you still do hear is lit. Something's exciting, crazy. People say it like more in reference to like the parties that they go to or events that they go to. Oh yeah, that hanging out at the bar last night, that was lit. That live show was lit. Things like that. This is a term that's come up in the last few years, and this is definitely kind of like a generational term, and it's the term adulting. So basically this is kind of like to describe completing tasks that are part of being a responsible adult. So like household chores, paying your bills, running errands, doing your taxes. Many people use it to describe, things that a typical adult does while implying that they don't feel like an adult. And I've also heard a lot of younger people say that they're having to learn how to adult on their own because unfortunately they feel like they were never taught how to adult as kids or teens. So I've made it a point with my own daughter who's 11 to try and start teaching her these things now so that she doesn't feel that kind of like imposter syndrome when she gets, older and feel like she's not really an adult, that she knows how to do these things, that she's more confident in how to do these things. But I'll let you in on a little secret. No matter how old you get, a lot of times you still feel like you don't know what you're doing, and you still feel like a kid a lot of times, or at least me, and most people that I know. So, Another term is bromance, an intense friendship between two bros. So the ones that come to my mind when I think of that are Ryan Reynolds and Hugh Jackman, where they're obviously really, really good friends. They really like each other, but they also like to rib each other, play pranks on each other, things like that. And it's actually kind of cool to see two friends, whether it's two guys, two girls, a guy and a girl, whatever it is, to actually be able to, hang out and interact and just kind of be themselves around each other and know that they have each other's backs no matter what. And like I said, the term bromance came about. I don't think there's a female equivalent to bromance, but maybe we should find one. Like cismance? No, that. You guys in the comments, you tell me what it should be. Here's a term that really has been prevalent for the last few years. This comes from a lot of reality shows where it's, I would say that almost like gossip based or drama based, like the Real Housewives shows, and that's the term shade, throwing shade, being shady. It's kind of like I kind of look at it as criticizing without making it obvious you're criticizing, and it's it's kind of like almost like a sneaky way of calling someone out a lot of times. Because it's kind of like roundabout, and it looks kind of okay on the surface at first, but then you think about it and you're like, that was a bit of shade. That was throwing shade. Another term that kind of comes from the same thing, and also I would say from the internet, specifically like YouTube, is the term tea. Spill the tea, gossip. I always kind of took it, and I don't know if this is how it started out, but I always kind of took it as like two people sitting and drinking tea and, sharing news, that kind of thing. I could be wrong, but that's kind of where I kind of like equated it. Here's a term that I believe came from Vine and is still one of my daughter's favorite words, and it's the word yeet. So to yeet something is to like throw it, to get rid of it, but with attitude. Like, you yeeted that bottle, or, I'm going to yeet him out of this classroom, that kind of stuff. She says it all the time. Now we come to 2020. This year, and it's bled into 2021. I know I'm not alone when I say that we're all exhausted from 2020 and 2021. It's been hard. But we can't deny that these 2 years have brought their own lexicon, their own vocabulary, and their own slang. The pandemic it's been difficult. And so we've had to learn how to deal with it. And so you got terms you have terms like social distancing, distance learning, work from home. But there's also other slang words that don't really have anything to do with it, but spread almost exclusively through social media. And this is because we were locked down most of the year, almost all of last year. And even though we have a little bit more movement now, we're kind of still locked down. So social media has been our way to communicate. And so one of those phrases that I think is funny, but maybe it's because I'm not a boomer, is okay boomer. And this came from what they call Gen Z, dismissing older people's opinions on matters that seem to be outdated. And it started out as a reference to baby boomers, but it looks like the younger kids are using it against anyone older than them, including Gen X and millennials. I'm part of Gen X. Gen X doesn't seem to care as much, but the millennials seem to be offended by being lumped in with the boomers. Honestly, we're kind of, as Gen X, we're kind of forgotten anyways. People forget that we're here. I don't know if they think we're just old millennials or young boomers. It doesn't matter to me, but I just thought that was kind of interesting. The term basic, run-of-the-mill, nothing special, live, laugh, love, home decor. There's nothing wrong with that, but it's so common that now people are like, oh, that's basic. If you like it, do it. Don't worry about what anybody else says, okay? The term canceled. The idea that someone or a group has done something offensive enough that they should be boycotted due to their behavior. This is a really tough one because the line can be kind of blurry about what what cancel culture is versus consequences for somebody's actions. And it's really easy for people to get on the bandwagon of canceling someone or a group and then finding out more facts later. This one's a little bit tricky. I'm just going to leave it there because it can be kind of controversial. The term mood or same, agreement with someone else's opinion or sentiment or how they're behaving. You kind of got, you know when you see it. And you look at, maybe it's a gorilla laying face down in the zoo enclosure and just kind of like fed up with the world. And you're like, yep, mood. I got you. I understand. Then you've got terms like clout. And clout on social media means strength, pull, influence. A lot of people will do things that they normally maybe wouldn't do for social media clout, to get more followers, subscribers, things like that. It can lead to some sticky situations, though. So those of you out there who are thinking about, doing something specifically for clout, double check your reasonings. That's all I have to say on that. Now, there's no way that I could have possibly listed or gone over all of the slang from the 80s to now. There's just no way. Regional differences, country differences, generational differences, all those things, they play into slang. So I really want to know what you guys think. What did I miss? What are some of your favorite words? What are the words? This is perfect. In the comments, tell me, what words do you wish would go away and never come back? That if you could never hear again, you would be so happy. I'm interested. I don't think I have any specific words or phrases that I'm like, I don't want to hear that ever again. But if you do, and I know that people have strong opinions, if you do, let me know. I'd love to hear it. Again, thank you for joining me at Pauline's Pop Culture Corner. This is my very first video, and I hope you guys enjoyed it. I would love to see you guys come back when I do future videos. Please subscribe, hit like, maybe share the video with your friends if you liked it, and I'll see you next time. Bye.